Okay, so today we are going to be creating this absolutely scrumptious, super moist, the best chocolate cake you will have ever eaten, and it's gluten-free to boot, and nobody even knows. I made this cake and a bunch of cupcakes for my best friend's wedding several years ago. I made both this best chocolate cake ever, as well as a best vanilla cake as well. I have had over 128 cupcakes, and it was about a party of 40 to 50, and they were all gone. I'm talking people came back for more. They loved the cupcakes so much. So people will not even know that this is gluten-free. So enjoy as we create the best chocolate cake ever. Okay, so let's get started making the best chocolate cake ever, and bonus gluten-free. So first off, we're going to get started with the dry ingredients for our best ever chocolate cake that is gluten-free. So I have already measured out 2 cups of 1-to-1 gluten-free flour in this bowl. I leveled it with a measuring cup and have it all ready for us in here. So first we'll start off with the flour. And then next we are going to be using 2 cups of granulated sugar. Now I want to note that in a measuring device like this, you're actually not going to get as accurate of a measurement of a cup. So you can see here it's actually below the 2-cup line. So just note that you want to use an actual measuring cup when measuring your ingredients for when you're making a cake. I just put it in here for convenience for pouring in for the video. So this is 2 cups of granulated sugar. Then next we're going to use 3/4 cup of cocoa powder. I've already have it measured out in this vessel for us. We will put that right in there. And then we are going to next go to our baking powder and baking soda. Okay, so next we're going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And make sure your baking powder is gluten-free. Most brands, I'm not running into any that aren't, but that is something we do want to keep an eye out for. And then 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. And here's my 1/2 teaspoon for the 1.5. And then next we are going to put in a teaspoon of salt. I'm using kosher salt. It really doesn't matter in this recipe because it will get dissolved when we're putting in the liquid ingredients. Okay, and our secret ingredient to making this the best tasting chocolate cake ever is some instant espresso powder. So we're going to put in 1 teaspoon of instant espresso powder. This is going to help bring out the chocolate flavor in it, and we are going to activate that later on when we're adding in the rest of the cake ingredients, and it might be a little surprising what we do there. All right, so let's get the dry mixture mixed up and all incorporated together. Now there is quite a bit of dry ingredients in here, so I do recommend stopping at least once and scraping down the bowl to make sure that we are really making everything incorporated, and then going one more time. Now while you're making your cake, you want to make sure that you have preheated your oven to 350 degrees. So next we're going to go to our wet ingredients, and the first one we're going to add is 1 cup of milk, buttermilk, or you can also do almond milk or coconut milk if you have dairy issues. This is just plain old milk for us. And then we also want to add in 1/2 cup of oil. Now our family has trouble with seed oils, so I use avocado oil here. It's actually, you can't even taste it in there, so I like it because it's basically tasteless. So we are adding in 1/2 cup of avocado oil. And then next we're also going to add in 2 large eggs. Now it's going to look very thick and brownie-like at this point, and that's okay because I have a surprise ingredient coming up that's going to change that. But first I want to get some of the mixture out of the whisk. And we're just going on a slow here. We don't want to beat this too fast. We don't want to put too much air in it. It'll do that on its own when it's baking. Okay, so hopefully you can see, let me show you what this looks like on the paddle attachment. See how thick that is? So it's very thick right now. Okay, so now we're going to add in our secret ingredient. We are going to activate that espresso powder. Actually, before I do that, I won't want to forget to get the vanilla in. Let me do the vanilla next. So we want 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Make sure you get vanilla extract that is also gluten-free. I like to use a high quality brand. Honestly, it just tastes better. It doesn't have that alcohol taste to it. So I like to use a really nice brand of vanilla extract. That's actually vanilla. Let's mix that in real quick. Just a little bit. Okay, so next we're going to add in that secret ingredient I was talking about for making this chocolate cake so moist and decadent. And I have made this for my best friend's wedding. I made chocolate and vanilla cake and cupcakes for her wedding, 128 of them, and there was about 50 people there, and they were all gone by the end of the wedding night. That's how good they are. People who don't eat gluten-free absolutely love these. And here's the secret ingredient. I'm being very careful with this because this is 1 cup of boiling water. So that boiling water is going to activate that instant espresso. Now you're not going to taste the espresso in the cake. It just brings out that chocolate flavor in the cake. So that's the point of the espresso, and then we're going to put in some boiling water. You'll see what happens when we do that. Okay, so here we are. We are going to very carefully, I put this in the microwave, that's how I got this boiling, 1 cup of boiling water, and we want to put this in very slowly. And then make sure you scrape down the sides, and I'm going to show you in just 1 second what this looks like because you will be a bit shocked. Okay, so once you've added in that boiling water, hopefully you can see on the camera, see how runny that is? It's not even sticking to the whisk. It is super soupy. Let me get the spatula out so you can see. Super soupy and runny. Now that is okay. That is what actually makes our cake really, really moist. You would think that this is ruined and it's not going to bake into a cake, but you will be shocked that this bakes into the most delicious, moist chocolate cake I think you'll ever have had. So if you see it runny like this is perfectly fine. This is normal, and this is what you're looking for in this chocolate cake recipe. Okay, so next we're going to pour our chocolate cake mixture into a very nicely greased baking tin. I have 2 of them here. This actually will fit into 2 plus baking tins for this recipe. So we will pour those in. Most baking tins, and note this, most baking tins have a line for how far you're supposed to fill it, and mine is about halfway up. So you don't want to fill these all the way up or they will go over the edge. Make sure you only fill it to your tin's capacity. And like me, you might have a bunch extra, and that's okay. Then just grab out some cupcake tins or smaller cakes if you want to add more tiers to it. And you can use the rest of this chocolate batter for cupcakes or more smaller cake tins. So next we're going to put it in an oven that is preheated to 350 degrees for 30 to 35 minutes. So since we have some extra batter left, cake batter, I want to talk to you a little bit of a tip I have on cupcake tins. So I find that they're not all equal. I really love personally using the foil lined cupcake tins because I feel like they bake the cupcake a bit more evenly and transfer the heat better. So these are some foil liners that I like. Mine come with a paper and then the foil part. I always take the paper out and bake that cupcake right in there. I also have reusable silicone cupcake liners that I love too when it's a family gathering and I'm not taking my cupcake somewhere else. I'm worried about getting those liners back. So the silicone liners also are a great vessel for really conducting that heat evenly so you have a really perfectly cooked cupcake. So that's my tip if you use this for cupcakes. And just so you know, this cupcake recipe will make more than 24 cupcakes, so it makes quite a bit, and it's great for birthday parties. So it's a nice full recipe that you won't need to double or anything. You'll get probably about 24 to 36 cupcakes in it. And one more cupcake tip for those of you who love cupcakes, which I love too because they're great and nice and portable, is that if you use one of these scoops like this, especially this one, I believe this is a 2 tablespoon one, it is really great at making sure that you're putting an even amount of batter in every single cupcake and making less of a mess. So I love to use these when I'm filling up those cupcake tins. Okay, so here's another baking tip while we're waiting for the cakes to get done. I actually noticed I was starting to smell the cakes 5 minutes early. So I actually just tested the cakes and they're done 5 minutes early. So when you're baking, use your sense of smell to tell when you think that they need to be checked. Even if it's a little bit early from what it's supposed to be, you might need to be checking on your cakes early. So let's take a look at what they look like. Okay, so like I said, our cakes are done early. I just checked them before checking on the video again, and here you can see. So this comes out completely clean. They are pulling away from the edges. So we are going to call these cakes done. And we're going to put in our cupcakes we'll check them at 15 minutes because cupcakes take a lot less time than cake. So I want you to see how beautiful these cakes are before we turn them out after we've let them cool. So first, can you see how they pulled away from the edge? That is a sign that the cake is done, besides the fact that I stuck a cake tester skewer into the center and it came out completely clean. So these are definitely done. So we're going to let them sit in their cake tins for 3 to 5 minutes to partially cool, and then I will turn them out onto this grate to let them finish cooling. Okay, so while our cakes are cooling, we are going to work on some delicious chocolate buttercream frosting from scratch. It's super easy to make. It's only a handful of ingredients, and it is just so scrumptious. I am not particularly an icing person, so I started making my own icing from scratch, and now I can adjust the sugar to how I like it. I don't like my frosting super sweet, so let's get right to it. Okay, so like I mentioned, our chocolate buttercream frosting is actually pretty simple. First, we start off with 1.5 sticks of softened butter. I highly recommend grass-fed butter for this. It's just going to make a much deeper, richer flavor. It's going to taste so good. And a bonus is it softens on your counter so much faster than conventional butter. So first we're going to start off with 1.5 sticks of butter. And this is salted butter. It's fine to use salted for this one. See how soft that is? We want it super soft. Okay, so next we're going to add in our cocoa powder. This is 1/2 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. I've already pre-measured it into this cup using 2 1/4 cups scoops, but this just makes it easier to pour. So we're going to add that to our butter mixture, or to just our butter. And then I'm going to caution you here, you want to start off really slow or you'll get a cloud of cocoa powder and get it everywhere, like I usually do every single time, but I'm going to try to start off slow. Now once you get that started to incorporate, once you feel like it's safe to turn it up, turn your mixer up on medium to high speed. We're basically trying to cream the butter and the cocoa powder until it becomes light and fluffy. Okay, so you can see that our butter and cocoa powder is pretty well mixed together. It's not going to get as light and fluffy as a vanilla would at this point because we haven't added the sugar into it, but you can see it's well incorporated. So now we can start adding in the powdered sugar and the milk slowly. So this calls for 2.5 cups of confectioner or powdered sugar, and 1/4 cup of milk. So we want to add these in slowly at a time. I like to add 1/2 cup of the powdered sugar, followed by I like about a tablespoon of the milk. Now do note when you see my milk, I have just reused my 1/4 cup I used for the baking powder, so don't worry about the brown stuff. That's just more cocoa powder. It'll just make it taste better. Okay, so we were going to start now with 1/2 cup of powdered sugar. Now start off slowly so you don't make a big cloud of powdered sugar like I usually do. And now add in just a little bit of the milk. Once it starts coming together, then turn the speed back up. We want to have this on high speed for about a minute, but do take a break and scrape down the sides to make sure we are getting all the yummies mixed together. Okay, and finally our last 1/2 cup of powdered sugar. I'm going to actually make this one a little shy because I don't like my icing quite so sweet. And then the final amount of milk. Okay, so at this point, see if it is the consistency that you would like it. This personally looks a little too thick for piping. I'm going to add just a touch more milk to it. It's really dry here today, so I'm going to add a little bit more milk so that it will be easier to pipe. So now that we have the icing to the consistency we like, there are 2 final ingredients to put into the buttercream frosting. So one of the last ingredients, there's 2 ingredients left, this is a 1/4 teaspoon of instant espresso powder. We're going to add that into our chocolate buttercream frosting again to pull out that chocolate flavor. You're not going to taste this. This isn't enough to taste, but it helps pull out that chocolate flavor and really elevate it for you. And then we also want a teaspoon of vanilla. So incorporate those 2 and then you're ready for your buttercream frosting. Okay, so now that the cakes are cool, we are going to begin decorating them. And they are nice and soft. I actually got cake on my hands. So first off, I want to put like a thin layer of the buttercream frosting in between our 2 cake layers. So I'm just going to make a swirl that we will spread out. So you can use a butter knife. I have an offset knife here that's even easier to use for working with cakes. We're going to spread that across, see if we need to add a bit more, which it looks like I might be a little shy. So we will add a little bit more to it. Having a table like this that turns does make things a lot easier, but if you aren't making cakes all the time, you can totally just put it on a plate and rotate the plate as you go. Okay, so we're going to put the next layer of cake on top. Now you can see how moist this cake is. You can see how it has come off onto my fingers because the top is now the bottom and it is super duper moist. Now I did not level my cakes. This is a birthday cake for my father-in-law. So if you wanted to be super precise, you could level the cake with a leveling knife if you'd like. But since this is for family, it's not for show or anything like that. Have some fun with it. It is what it is. All right, so now we're going to put like a nice little layer on it to make a crumb coat. Or just like an outside layer if everything goes together and it doesn't make crumbs. So I find that this cake generally is firm enough, even though it's so moist, to not have the crumbs come through when you're making the crumb layer. So many times you don't need to make a crumb layer and then a pretty layer on top, which is what so far I'm finding, at least on the top. So we'll see how the sides do. First, I do need more icing. All right, so there you have it, a beautiful, most moist, delicious, best chocolate cake you'll ever eat, and gluten-free to boot. This, the smell that's coming from it right now is just, I can't wait to dig into this. So hope you enjoyed this and hope it was helpful. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just click that subscribe button below. And if you have any questions, reach out to us. You can always find us at theglutenfreeengineer.com. And we also have a podcast. You can find that at theglutenfreeengineer.com as well. You can find the links for that. And we will see you next time.